Howdy friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Today we're going to continue our Star Wars Factions Military Analysis series. Last episode we covered the Galactic Empire. Today we're going to look at the Rebel Alliance. Now for those of you who have just seen the main Star Wars films, you've actually only seen the surface of what is an extremely complicated paramilitary force. Unlike Leia, Han, and Luke, the average rebel soldier wasn't protected by Durasteel plot armor, and usually they died in wholesale numbers on much more mundane missions. What we see unfold in Rogue One is more akin to what the ordinary rebel soldier would go through. Dying to provide cover for characters that actually have names, dying to push buttons, dying to pass a memory stick off to safety, dying because they try to fly through a planetary shield. Life was extremely terrible and dangerous for the average rebel soldier. So like in our last video, let's discuss what exactly the purpose of the rebellion is. If we look at the organization's declaration of rebellion, it outlines clearly what their goals are.
We, the Rebel Alliance, do therefore, in the name by the authority of the free beings of the galaxy, solemnly publish and declare our intentions to fight and oppose you and your forces by any and all means at our disposal, to refuse any imperial law contrary to the rights of free beings, to bring about your destruction and the destruction of the Galactic Empire, to make forever free all beings in the galaxy. To these ends, we pledge our property, our honor, and our lives.
Although this declaration was a lot more simple and vague than our own Declaration of Independence, this served as a banner for which anti-imperial factions could gather around. All sorts of people showed up. Peace-loving Alderaanians, former separatists who saw the Empire as an evolution of the Republic, extremist partisans who were totally out of control, and aliens who found themselves on the wrong side of the Empire's xenophobic policies. And because of that, it was a complete mess, and up until the Battle of Scarif, there was hardly a united front. It was more like a loose coalition of groups that occasionally joined together in the same operation if their goals were the same. But as victories began to rack up and larger threats began presenting themselves, the Ragtag Alliance consolidated once they realized that they could do more damage together than alone. Well, except for Saw Gerrera's partisans, after the destruction of Jedha City, they became more radicalized, rebranded themselves the Dreamers, began carrying out more T-word attacks, and strapped explosives to their bodies. Yeah, this isn't your father's Star Wars. It's a little bit different. So now we're going to look at the military protocol of the Rebel Alliance by breaking it down to the strategic, operational, and tactical level. At the strategic level, things were relatively complicated. On several occasions, the Rebel Alliance needed to gather all their resources in one place to face existential threats like the Death Star. But these operations weren't necessarily the most important part of the Rebel strategy, they were more just like reactions to terrible events. To truly understand the Rebellion strategy, we have to reference the excellent novel Twilight Company, which follows your standard Rebel infantry unit. Twilight Company is led by two individuals. One is Captain Hal, a teacher who helped form the company, and the other is Every Chalice, an Imperial logistics expert who defected. The two had competing philosophies. Chalice was bent on getting her revenge from the Empire and was focused on destroying key logistics hubs in order to cripple the Galactic Empire war machine. Captain Hal, on the other hand, made sure that the Rebel Alliance's ideology was maintained through any mission they went through. While Chalice's missions did do a lot of damage to the Empire, in the end they just weren't enough. The Rebellion, even at its peak, had a fleet no larger than a few hundred capital ships, and to be honest, half of these so-called capital ships were just repurposed civilian and industrial freighters, whereas the Empire could field 25,000 Imperial-class Star Destroyers, along with other crazy ships like Super Star Destroyers and various other Star Destroyers, cruisers, and battle stations. Simply put, a conventional victory would be impossible for the Rebellion. This is where Captain Hal would come in. He's like a mixture of Joshua Chamberlain and John Miller. He constantly talked to his soldiers and made them think about why they were fighting. He made his men understand that while tactical victories are important, without winning the hearts and minds of the galaxy, the Rebellion would never be successful. Every battle potentially meant civilian casualties and collateral damage, which could tarnish the reputation of the Rebel Alliance. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of the citizens of the galaxy were still pro-Imperial. This is why Captain Hal didn't always choose strategic targets to attack. Sometimes Twilight Company undertook humanitarian missions, and sometimes they freed Imperial captives and slaves. Captain Hal realized that if he couldn't convince the galaxy that the Rebellion was a better alternative to the Empire, it didn't really matter how many Star Destroyers they took down, the Rebellion would never win. At the same time, though, large victories like the ones at Yavin and Endor inspired more people to join the Rebellion and gave people hope that the Empire could be defeated. It was kind of similar to the Battle of Trenton, in which George Washington showed the world that the American rebels stood a chance against the British Empire. The rebellion relied on a very shaky supply line. This was due to the Galactic Empire's numerous sanctions which forbid people from doing business with the rebels. This meant the rebellion usually relied on smugglers to gather materials from worlds and corporations that sympathized with their cause or the black market. But more hard-to-gain resources like capital ships were more or less stolen from Imperial shipyards. At a tactical level, the Rebel Alliance focused on lightning-fast mobile attacks. Because the Imperial fleet was spread thin across the galaxy, they often attacked lightly guarded targets and quickly withdrew before overwhelming force was sent to reinforce local Imperial garrisons. A lot of these strategies were further refined by Imperial defector Crix Madine, who developed the Madine Rules of War. Madine encouraged rebellion commanders to preserve their numbers by finding weaknesses in the enemy's defenses and thinking outside the box. In space, the rebellion relied less on capital ships and more on highly capable snub fighters, which were heavily armed, well protected, and had hyperdrives. The philosophy was a small group of snub fighters could carry out a hit-and-run tactic that could disable and even destroy larger Imperial ships. It was the same strategy that saw the death of large battleships after World War I. Simply put, a larger ship meant a larger target for the increasingly competent aircraft of World War II. In many ways, George Lucas based the rebellion on the Allies during World War II. But the only similarity is perhaps their end goal, the destruction of evil and tyranny. A more apt comparison might be the loose coalitions that formed to fight against Assad's regime and Daesh. We had Kurds and Iraqis, Shias and Sunnis, we had Christians and Muslims, and religious fanatics and communists all joining together under one flag for one common goal. The real question is what will happen when their enemies are defeated. The rebellion certainly faced a lot of immediate problems when it transitioned to the New Republic. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're looking to help our channel but you can't afford to support us on Patreon, please just share this video out there on social media with your friends. You can check us out on Facebook, share our links from there, because that helps us a lot. Just last episode, I told you guys that if you shared the video and helped us get more views, I would continue the series. You guys did an amazing job, so we're going to continue this and cover more Star Wars factions. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you're the first ones to know when those videos come out. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.